Jokes, jokes, jokes. We got jokes everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Look. What's up, Raiders? It's your boy Groovinator from RaidersOfLostFlix.com, and I want to thank all of you that just recently subscribed to my channel. Growth has been making me happy, and it's been driving me to make even better content. So let's keep that ball rolling. As soon as I hit 300, I'm going to have a watch party for the wonderfully bad movie Miami Connection. I want you all to join me for that. So I want to make it that 300 milestone, though, so it makes it more special. Because I could do a watch party anytime, but, you know, let's make it an event. Let's make it a celebration, right? So now that I got that out of the way, let's get into Stranger Things Season 3. Now, I did a trailer reaction video for this, and I was very excited. I'm a big fan of the show, okay? You know, I mean, I got my collector's edition, right? This season is near perfection, okay? And, you know, I grew up in the 80s, and I think a part of it is, you know, there's nostalgia for people that grew up in the 80s, and then there's also nostalgia for 80s content in general. Was just, it was a better quality of entertainment, and people just kind of want to feel that wonderful innocent vibe again, you know, because content is kind of, you know, things have gotten darker and more episodic, and, you know, so some of the fun and magic has been lost in that process, and, you know, and lost in translation. But anyway, Stranger Things Season 3 is really excited about it. It took me a while to get through it because, you know, it dropped on 4th of July weekend. I had company visiting. I've done live streams and shows. I've been trying to put content up on my channel. My dog got sick. You know, I've got all these things going on right now. Plus, I've been going to doctor's appointments myself. I finally got through it last night. I just basically made a commitment to just sit and finish watching the show. Now, that kind of gets into my review, and this is going to be spoiler territory because it's impossible to talk about this season without spoiling aspects of what's going on in it. So if you have not seen Stranger Things Season 3 and you're a fan of the show, please, you know, like my video anyway. Maybe come back and watch it later. You know, watch the season, then come back and watch this review. I'd appreciate it very much. So, spoilers, full-blown spoilers going on forward. Season 3 went into it with expectations, and I think part of it is, you know, you start building these things up, and then you have expectations, whereas with the first one you didn't know anything about it, and then, you know, you watch the whole season like, wow, that was really cool. It was like a really long extended 1980s John Carpenter, Stephen King movie, you know, and I really appreciate it for that. And I thought Season 2 was pretty good too. Other than maybe one episode, I really enjoyed what they did with that. It felt like it was the second part of the first movie. You know what I mean? It felt like a true sequel. This one here, it feels like it's being made out of an obligation. And part of it, let's get the good stuff out of the way first. All right, production value was really good. You could tell they had a really big budget when they made this. This is pretty much their flagship show for Netflix. You know, they realize that there's a huge draw for this of different various ages, and they spared no expense on the making of this show. You know, there's a scene here. You know, I got the picture up so I can show you. They're inside this Starcourt Mall, which is basically a big set, and, you know, it's a nice callback because I remember a time when going to the mall was actually a big thing. You know what I mean? Like, everybody went to the mall, even if you didn't necessarily go there to shop. You went there to run into people and wear your outfits. It was like a social gathering, you know what I mean? And I think this movie or TV show series actually nailed that aspect of it. Like, the mall is just full of people, and all these stores are open and booming, and there's just all this commerce and people milling around the food court. I miss that aspect of my life. You know, I mean, you go to the mall now, if you even have a mall where you live, you go down there, there's like 2 or 3 people milling around. There's just nothing there. But so I appreciate that aspect of it. Also, this guy here and this guy here are the stars of this show. They're my favorite dynamic. These two have an awesome chemistry. They play really well off of each other. This guy antagonizes this guy, and back and forth. He wants to be cool. He wants to be smart. They got a chemistry going. And unfortunately, there's not enough of that in this series, but we'll get into that. The other thing that I really enjoyed is there was some really good special effects, like you know, good horror movie quality special effects. There's a lot of throwbacks to, like, you know, some of the Aliens movies, and the Blob, like the 1988 Blob comes to mind. Fantastic stuff. I really enjoyed those aspects of it. You could tell that, you know, the Duffer Brothers were fans of the 80s version of the Blob, at least. And also there's some callbacks to, like, say, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. All right, so that was cool. All right. Also, you know, you still like Eleven. I mean, it's impossible not to like her. You know, she's growing. She's a teenager. Plus, she's got all these weird powers, and it kind of, I thought the movie or the show did a good job of showing that, you know, clash of things. You know, it's like, not only is she growing into a woman, but she also has to deal with these powers, and the two kind of clash with each other. And, you know, this is a coming of age type show. I mean, the kids are getting older. They're kind of growing out of some of their hobbies. You know, they're interested in girls now, and it's kind of a bummer, but it is part of a life that we all deal with, and not everybody always nails that aspect of it. You know, it's like you had this group of people that you hung out with, and then y'all got older and everybody got into different things, and you know, sometimes you part ways and sometimes you part interests as well, and I think this kind of explored that pretty good. All right, so that's the end of my compliments for this series. Now let's get into the negatives. Okay, overall, I was very disappointed with this season of Stranger Things, and I realized that not every single season of a TV show is going to be a banger. You know what I mean? Not everything's going to be a hit. You know, I get it, but some of the things that irritated me was, you know, I watched about 4 episodes back to back, and then I stopped, and it took me about 3 or 4 days to go back and pick up the show again. And that's because the first half of this season, which is 8 episodes long, is so incredibly dull. And in the first 2 seasons, pacing was never a problem. Like, each episode had that one hook to draw you back in. And I'm not saying they didn't attempt that this season, it's just they didn't do it good enough. And part of the problem is, whereas the first 2 seasons I thought were really good with this, they lose the suspense in the show. The tension is undercut by jokes after joke after joke after joke after joke. Constantly jokes. Jokes, constant jokes all the time, and it undercuts all the tension. You know, it's like you're supposed to be, you know, invested in the story, and that's my other problem. The story's not really very good. I mean, the story basically involves that the Mind Flayer from the last season has come into our world and wants to manifest itself, you know, and basically take over this dimension, make it its own. So it does that by basically possessing people. You know, it possesses the Billy villain from the last season, you know, the really hunky one that all the girls are falling down over, possesses him, so he becomes the face of the Mind Slayer. And my problem with that is the special effects of it looked really cool, but now what you're giving the Mind Flayer a face and a personality. All right, and it kind of sucks, because part of what made the Mind Flayer so scary in the last season was that the mystery, the mystique and awe of what drives this thing, what motivates it, and not knowing made it a more scarier entity. This one, it's like an oil can Harry villain with a you know, because it possesses Billy, and then it speaks to 11, and you know, it's telling 11, I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to kill all of your friends, and I'm going to take over the world. I mean, attach that to any James Bond villain that's ever come around ever in the history of history itself, okay? We've heard all this before. And so now the Mind Flayer is not quite as effective as I would like it to be. And then that reveal just kind of really disappointed me, okay? We don't get to see a lot of the Upside Down, all right? We basically see there's this big underground Russian facility underneath the Starcourt Mall, and yeah, Russians. Okay, that's the villain in this. Is there's this giant army of Russians underneath the new mall. Okay, and it's drilling into the Upside Down. All right. They never open it, but it's just they got this big drill that they're trying to drill open the door to the Upside Down. So, and they never kind of go anywhere with that. And like I said, the jokes are nonstop. David Harbour and Winona Ryder are together for most of this movie, and they're kind of teasing some kind of relationship dynamic, but it does not work. Those two actors have absolutely zero chemistry whatsoever. So what you get is this annoying bickering between these two throughout the entire show, and it's supposed to be played off as like sexual tension, but it doesn't really communicate right. It just doesn't work. Okay, so that didn't work for me either. In fact, I found it extremely annoying. At one point, one of the actors in the movie makes a joke about that, you know, and I'm like, yeah, this is really annoying. Shut up. It's like either, you know, pull over and screw or stop already, you know, and that's kind of what they got to. The other thing I did not like about this show, and I can't stress this enough, okay, this guy right here, I told you, like, these two are the best, you know, this guy, Dustin, and I can't remember his name right now, I'm sorry, you know who I'm talking about, okay? He's redeemed himself at the end of the first season, okay? I mean, he was the bully, but then he basically came through as the hero in the end, you know, and he became a regular character. He's already had his arc, okay? So now you got him and this girl right here, and they're working in an ice cream shop, okay? And there's obviously the same kind of tension between these two that you have between David Harbour and Winona Ryder, okay? So they basically spend about 5 or 6 episodes of an 8-episode season building this dynamic between these two. Like, she's kind of interested in him. They like hint around to it. He's not interested in her because she's a nerd. She was a band nerd or whatever. And this was Mr. Cool, okay? And she's not impressed with Mr. Cool. So they're kind of like battling against each other. But you can tell there's definitely something there, okay? So these two basically get captured, all right? And the Russians inject him with truth serum, okay? And then they have a heart-to-heart, and she's like, you know, I used to watch you, I was obsessed with you and all this kind of stuff, and he's kind of sitting there thinking, you know, and Dustin's teasing him the whole season, like, okay, you know, it's like, you got something right in front of you, why don't you just ask her out, you know, just do it, all right? So you're thinking, okay, maybe this guy will finally get some kind of, you know, because he lost Nancy about a season ago. That's over, and they don't try to pick that up again. But also, these two don't have any chemistry either. They're extremely boring, and they're couples in real life. So there's that, okay? But anyway, back to these two, okay? This is Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke's daughter, by the way, all right? So basically, they get to the big reveal, and it comes to find out that he says, you know, I could probably, you know, somebody was right in front of me the whole time, and he's spilling his heart out to her. He's like, you're right there the whole time, and you know, what do you think about that? And she's like, oh no, I wasn't interested in you. I was interested in the girl that you never paid attention to. So she basically comes out as a lesbian, all right? And that basically undercuts everything that they were trying to build between these two, and it kind of sucks. It was an extreme bummer. It made me go, oh, fuck you, Stranger Things. Seriously, why would you build something up that much just to slap somebody in the face and say, nope, she's a lesbian? You know, it's not that I have a problem with her being a lesbian, it's just that you teased all of that tension and then you just undercut all of it, and now he's just back to being the loser again, and I don't think that's fair, all right? And the other thing is that particular situation, if this is truly supposed to be an 80s throwback movie, would not be in that movie. I'm just saying, it basically, it's no longer an 80s movie anymore. Now it's a new movie aimed at, you know, pandering to certain types of people that want that in a show, okay? It feels like it was driven for pandering, it was driven for acceptance by the LGBTQ community, and I don't like that, okay? If the LGBTQ community likes this show, then just fucking watch the show and enjoy the show. We don't have to have all of this representation. People will identify with the characters. We don't need to have all this ham-fisted, heavy-handed identity politics in our entertainment, all right? Speaking of identity politics, it's also teased that Will Byers, where's he at? There he is, right over here in the corner. Basically, he's barely in the show. It's teased that he doesn't like girls. I don't know if they're going to make anything out of that. I don't know if they're going to take that a step further and have him come out of the closet. But the thing is if this is truly an 80s show, okay, those kind of things were not in 80s shows. So what is this aimed towards now? I don't understand, all right? Is this a modern show, or is this supposed to be an 80s show? It was a bummer, all right? It was an absolute bummer. And like I said, the jokes... it was okay to have humor. I mean, you guys watch my channel, you know I joke all the time. I'm full of jokes. I live by humor, right? But there becomes a time where you have to tune down the jokes just a little bit to let the tension in the story come to play. But it came very clear to me that the story was the weakest element of this show, all right? Because there's not much of a story. Mind Flayer wants to come out and it wants to take over the town again, and once again these kids are going to try to stop it, but not before the kids infiltrate the Russian base and stop them first so that they don't open the gate. You know what I mean? And that's how they're going to destroy the Mind Flayer, by destroying the drill and closing the gate and, you know, sci-fi nonsense, all right? Which is cool. I love sci-fi, but I just think that this show missed a lot of beats. I think that the jokes were a little bit too over the top. I don't see her on the screen here, but it's the little girl from last season that's the sister of this guy. She's in this show too, and she's just a smartass in every single scene. And it gets to the point to where her character has started to annoy me as well. You know what I mean? It's just... it was way too over top of the humor, and I didn't like it. And it made me upset. And like I said, it feels like this season, it's like they want to have more seasons, so they're stretching this season. And that's kind of a bummer. You know what I mean? It's like that first season was fantastic. The second season was pretty good other than just one episode. And now this one, it's like 4 episodes was like, eh. And the last 4 episodes were better, but not quite as good as the last season. So this is definitely the weakest in 3. Let's see, if I had to slap cheese curds on it, I'd probably give it a 2 out of 5. I can't give it any higher than that, because there was too much disappointment. Yes, there were some fantastic elements, but it felt like every time they did something fantastic, they undercut it with something dumb or a dumb joke. Or like I said, the thing that was built up with these two, only to turn around and have a ham-fisted, you know, oh, by the way, I like girls, not guys, you know, it sucked, all right? It just was very, very disappointing. So, now that I've got that out of the way, I want to get to this next point that I'm making here. Sorry about this. What's this mean for Netflix, okay? This is the flagship show, okay? Netflix is censoring content more than it ever has, and this concerns me. I mean, it really does, all right? In the world of online streaming platforms, the topic of censorship remains a wild frontier. Netflix made headlines in 2017 when it released a highly controversial television adaptation of the young adult novel 13 Reasons Why, over the fact that the season 1 finale of the show depicted a graphic suicide scene. Critics, as well as mental health professionals, condemned both Netflix and the show's creators for its graphic portrayal of such an act, one that has never before been portrayed so blatantly in a show directed at a younger audience, for fear that it would inspire the age-old argument that art can influence action. Now, over 2 years and nearly 2 seasons later, the show has announced that it's made the decision to remove the scene. This is very, very dangerous stuff here, ladies and gentlemen, and this is something that I've been griping about to friends of mine for a very long time, is that I have a problem with streaming in general because you don't officially own any of your content. You're paying money to basically watch these things for an unlimited time, but you don't own the content. They can go and change this content. So if you liked that show and that scene didn't bother you, guess what? Now they went back and changed it. That's why I really encourage people, when you like a show or you like a season, if you have the means and mode, buy the physical copy, because they can't change this. This will not be changed. If there's a scene that they find problematic down the road, they can't go back and change it. You already own this. You can watch this to your heart's content. Whereas if, you know, I go back and watch this season on Netflix, they might go back and change a scene. They might take a scene out because they found it problematic. You know what I'm saying? You get where I'm saying? Physical media always wins in these arguments, okay? Meanwhile, Netflix also recently announced that it made new amendments to its policy regarding the depiction of smoking in content meant for a younger audience. Both of these decisions signal that Netflix is growing increasingly aware of its position as a media powerhouse and is responsible to censor sensitive topics from young audiences. This leaves just one question: what does that mean for the future of its content? And I'm not going to read all of this, okay? But I'm just going to say that this is an extremely slippery slope, all right? Censoring your content posts because people have deemed it offensive, all right? They've never been able to prove in any stretch of the means that, you know, subjecting somebody to something has any kind of an effect. But whenever they say some of these things, you know, Netflix bends the knee, all right, and they go back and they change the content, and then that has, because something happened to one person or a particular group of people, everybody has to pay for it. It only takes one bad apple to spoil the bunch, all right? So I'm not going to get into the suicide scene because, okay, here, let's talk about this. Stranger Things ignites smoking policies. While it took over 2 years for Netflix and 13 Reasons Why to take an action regarding deeply controversial scene, Stranger Things sparked almost overnight changes to Netflix policy surrounding the portrayal of smoking in shows meant for younger audiences. Because the show takes place in the 1980s, okay, it portrays heavy smoking from many of an adult characters. However, this sparked, pun intended, oh God, really? criticism from organizations like the Truth Initiative. The organization argues that because the show receives a younger audience and features so many young stars, its portrayal of smoking may negatively influence teens and young adults to take up the habit. Netflix made adjustments to its company policy regarding smoking, announcing that shows that receive a wide audience rating for younger than 17 will have strict smoking policies. This means that viewers can expect favorite characters to have kicked the habit altogether by the time season 4 of the show hits premieres, sometimes in the unannounced future. Does this mean that older shows with older audiences are going to see greater censorship in the future? Probably not. Realistically, would Orange is the New Black have been in the same without the profanities, nudity, and drug use? Absolutely not. So, they bended the knee, all right, and they went back and changed something because people found it offensive, all right? Again, people, streaming content is not the way to go, all right? If you truly love a movie, and I'm not going to say that I haven't bought a couple of streaming movies just because it was more convenient, or maybe it was cheaper at the time, or maybe it's something that I would like to see multiple times, but I don't really want to clog it into that collection of Blu-rays behind me there, which are mostly movies that I can't live without. You know what I mean? I don't have a lot of space. I have a couple of digital movies, but if it's something that I absolutely love, like for example, the first season of Westworld, I own this physical because I don't want to see this ever changed. This season was perfection. Second season had some moments of greatness, but not nearly as good as this one. So that's why I own this, okay? If it's something I truly love, I go out and I buy a physical copy so that I make sure that I have something that they can't find problematic and go back and alter. We live in a world of 1984, ladies and gentlemen. You can call me a crazy tinfoil hat weirdo, but you're seeing this stuff happen in slow motion. I saw this coming a long time ago, all right? So let's get to this point, okay? Netflix lost a whole bunch of money overnight because people are just getting fed up with the prices. They're getting fed up with content being canceled and taken away from the streaming service. What this basically means, okay, is that, and I'm just going to take it from a personal standpoint, okay? After I finished watching Stranger Things Season 3, I canceled my subscription because it has become clear to me that it's no longer committed to its 80s throwback vibe, okay? With its slightly identity politics driven agenda. I feel like Stranger Things has too many characters now, and there's so many characters on screen that they're not together, okay? And they're struggling to try to find things to do for these characters, so they either do the lazy thing that most millennials do, they either kill the character off, or just give them some small, minute task, just so they can say, yeah, they were in the show. You know what I mean? So I'm not interested in that content. They already canceled Daredevil, which was a show that I thought was amazing, especially its last season. They canceled that. They canceled The Punisher, even though that second season was pretty bad. I do believe that the problem is that there's too many streaming services to pick from, okay? So you have to spend as much money for all of these different streaming services to have all the content that you want, then it's going to cost just as much as you did when you were buying cable. Because most people cut the cord. Remember, we were going to cut the cord and just have Netflix or just have Netflix and Hulu. Now everybody's raising the prices, and you're having to pay just as much for these services as you did when you had cable. And this is a dangerous thing here, especially for people like Disney, who spent all of this money just to buy Fox so that they could own all those streaming medias in the first place. So like I said, people, you guys do what you want to do, but I don't think streaming's the way to go. That being said, I don't have a cable box. I don't believe in it, mostly because most of the shows suck. If it's a show that I really watch, I usually go out and just buy it, all right, and then watch it at my own pace. You know what I mean? And most of the new shows just don't interest me anymore. So, you know, you need to make your content better too, is what I'm saying, all right? And new content isn't good when you're constantly wrapping up everything in identity politics. Anyways, I've rambled on long enough. Make sure you leave a like down below. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and tell all your friends about us. And we'll see you on the next one. And this is the Groovinator signing out. You guys have yourselves a groovy day. Peace. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it somewhat entertaining. Please remember to depress that like button and subscribe to my channel for more content. Make sure you hit that bell icon so you'll be the first to know when new content is published. Please visit RaidersOfLostFlix.com for more hilarious entertainment and links to all of our social media platforms. Also, consider supporting us on Patreon. As little as $1 a month supports our worldwide digs for more Lost Flicks. Thank you, and have a groovy day.